Joining me today on the Creepcast, we have Aya Cash from The Boys, but today she's here to discuss her new film, Scare Me, that's going to be on Shudder October 1st. So first, thanks for taking the time to talk about Scare Me today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to set things up a little bit for people. You play Fanny, who's a best-selling horror author of a book called Venus, and she runs across an aspiring author that's not quite the status that you are on a writing retreat in the cabin. So it's you and Josh Ruben, and the film kind of plays out like a love letter to horror fans, I feel like, with references and harkening back to fireside chats and that sort of thing. But it felt very organic to me, and it seemed like a ton of fun to film. So I'm just wondering if you guys had any chance, with it just being the two of you and Josh being the writer, to kind of riff and layer onto these stories that you're telling each other to try and scare one another, or was it very set in stone by Josh?
No, there was a very strong script, and then Josh
Yeah.
was like, "Best idea wins. Like we can riff off things, we can improv and do that." There's a little bit about Zumba that I contributed, um,
Yeah.
but also Chris Redd, who is in it, is just a mad genius. So there were times when we would just sit back and just do 15-minute takes of Chris Redd telling the story and continue. The story or the line might be 5 lines long, and
Yeah.
then just let Chris go. um,
That's awesome. Maybe we'll get that on like a DVD special feature or
oh
something.
yeah,
I'd
hilarious.
love I'd love to see that. Well, I thought everyone played off of each other really well, so that's why I was asking. Like, the writing's so strong, like you mentioned, but it really felt like you guys organically were just taking shots at one another. So that's awesome. I could also see this film easily playing out on stage, like a stage play, just because of the structure of it. Have you ever had a role kind of quite like this, where it was one location, really two actors with a third one kind of in the third act kind of added? Have you ever been a part of a project like this where you and another actor were so dependent on one another?
I don't think I have.
And how
I
was that for you?
It was great because Josh and I are friends. So Josh and I have known
Okay.
each other for years, and through my husband actually. And then he ended up on You're the Worst for an episode, which is so
Oh
fun.
yeah.
So we'd worked together before, and we knew each other. So there was a lot of trust of him. I know how smart he is. I know how funny he is. I'm a huge fan of all the videos and characters that he's created. So in that way, it was easy. Like it wasn't like we were strangers coming, or I was just sort of an actor for hire that had auditioned and gotten this job. So that helped. He would be like, "Can I come over and read through this with you?" uh,
Oh,
and come over to the house, before we started shooting. So that's a huge benefit, I think, was our friendship.
yeah, for sure. Well, it plays out on screen. You mentioned trust, and you trust Josh. I have to ask, without ruining too much, I don't want to spoil anything for anyone. Do you think Fanny actually trusted Fred from the get-go, or was she just screwing with him a little bit?
Uh, yeah, I think she's messing with him, and she doesn't trust him. I think both are true.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, with the idea around this is to scare each other. So I'm just curious, was there any scary stories growing up, or more specifically, like urban legends that you had passed around when you were a kid, that you might have taken part in? And if not, is there an urban legend that you really like, or that scares you, even if you know it's not necessarily real?
I mean, I was not a big horror kid, but Beetlejuice is one of my favorite movies ever. So I remember, like, as a kid being like, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice,
Yeah.
like waiting for him to show up. And similarly, I feel like Candyman, like the idea of saying Candyman in the mirror, that like he would show up. So basically, I'm like a person that I can't say names 3 times.
Yeah, I was gonna say Beetlejuice is kind of the uh, PG-13 version of Candyman from an urban legend standpoint.
And
I'll be,
they're remaking Candyman, right?
yeah, it's coming out. I think they pushed it to next year with Nina DaCosta. Yeah, I'm interested
Yeah,
to see
that I'm excited about. I think
what they do
Mia's
with that.
genius.
I actually would really like Shudder. I know they've been doing like merchandising stuff lately with Scare Package and that kind of thing. Creep Show, I really want a Venus book to come out,
Totally.
or like a sticker book for Halloween or something like that.
Well, there is, so that story is sped up in the story of Venus is sort of like, montagey
Yeah.
in the movie, but we did the story of Venus all
Oh,
out.
really?
So there is a longer version, but pacing wise, it would not have worked to have another long story right in the middle
Yeah.
there. But there, you can probably get all the details from Josh.
That's super interesting that it exists, like in some form at least,
Some form,
longer
yes, not the
longer form.
actual form. But
See, that's perfect. Shudder needs to get on like a sticker book immediately for Halloween. I feel like it's perfect. An adult sticker book. One thing I really liked about the movie, and people will see, is how the stories are brought to life, more than just you guys telling them and your facial expressions. But if there's a werewolf on screen, we see that kind of creeping hand come out. That's practical effect, and that sort of thing. Was that something that was written in, that you guys were going to communicate the story in that sense, more of a visual platform because it is in one location? Or is that something that Josh and you kind of workshopped, as you said you were kind of practicing back and forth and shaping the story?
No, that was all Josh's idea. I think
Yeah.
he knew the constraints of the budget and was like, how do we be creative with this? I mean, I do think that parameters like that often create the most interesting choices. So he really thought deeply about that. And also the sound design of the movie is
Mm-hmm.
a huge part of the storytelling. And those little practicals too are sometimes very subtle. Like I'll come up with the vampire teeth on for a
Mm-hmm.
second and you're like, wait, but I thought we were in reality. And
Mm-hmm.
there's this little extra layer of, are we not in reality? Are we not just telling stories? That
I love that so much, and it was something that you don't really expect because you're into the movie at that point. And then those little added touches, like, yeah, I absolutely loved that. So I was curious about that aspect of it. I want to kind of push into 5 kind of quick rapid fire questions about Halloween and horror, and just get some answers and learn a little bit more about your love potentially for Halloween or horror. We'll see. I don't know. So first one, favorite horror villain or monster?
favorite horror villain or monster? Oh God, you're gonna learn my lack of
Oh
knowledge
no,
about.
on the spot here.
Uh,
Beetlejuice, you brought up Beetlejuice.
yeah, but that's not. I feel like
Yeah.
that's cheating. Um,
Yeah.
sure, Beetlejuice. Thank you.
All right, we'll say it one time. We won't say his name anymore. Have you ever played with the Ouija board?
Yes, absolutely. I
Has
was
any
pure Wiccan as a teenager. Let's be
really?
honest. Yeah, The Craft too. I just took a friend to see The Craft in Toronto, who had never seen it, like a younger friend, and I was like, "Oh, you haven't seen? We're going to see The Craft in the
Uh,
in the theater."
yeah, that's great. Now, did you ever TP a house or smash a pumpkin when you were a teenager?
No, I was more of a let's go drink in the park than
Yeah,
actually cause any real
I
chaos.
agree. I agree. I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
Favorite Halloween candy?
Uh, oh, why can't I think of the names? The little orange ones with the yellow tips that you can put in your
Candy corns?
candy corn. Yeah.
Oh man, we might have a debate or a fight on that, but I'll let it pass because it's 5 questions, 5 quick questions.
Yeah.
If you died, came back as a ghost, who would you haunt and why?
Um, I'd probably haunt whoever is doing terrible things in the world at the moment.
I
I'd
I
haunt
act
dictators and Breitbart reporters.
I we have similar answers to that, so we both know who we're talking about. We'll leave
Yep.
it at that. I agree. Well, I want to say thanks so much for joining me here on the Creepcast. I want everyone to check out Scare Me on Shudder, October 1st. Have a great Halloween, and thanks again for joining us.
Thanks so much.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.